Right now might not be the best time to buy a house, but if you believe the American dream is out of reach forever and that you'll never be able to afford a home, then you should probably stop watching this video now. But on the flip side, if you believe home ownership is still possible and you're not going to let the current situation, affordability, prices, rates, and all of that dictate your ability to own a home, then this video is for you. See, the problem is a lot of people out there believe that home ownership is never going to happen for them. It's never possible, that we're a renter nation and that it's just completely out of reach. Well, the reason they think like that is because they're approaching the home buying process like they do when they buy a cup of coffee, which is little to no preparation at all. It takes absolutely nothing to walk into a Starbucks and buy some coffee. And that's essentially how most home buyers approach the home buying process. And then they're shocked to find out that not only do they not qualify for a home, but it's further out of reach than they ever thought possible. This video is about setting you up for success to become a homeowner when it's the right time in your life. With over 20 years in real estate, I've helped hundreds of buyers just like you navigate the home buying process. So if you're thinking about buying a house, you're in the right place as we dive into the 5 things that you need to know if you're buying a house in 2025. The first and probably the most important step of the 5 that we're going to discuss today is financial planning. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to have a financial planner or that you need to have some sort of huge down payment or anything in order to buy a house. What it means is that you need to have your finances in order before going out and shopping for a home, and better yet, before talking to a lender. As I mentioned earlier, most people approach the home buying process like they do a cup of coffee. You just walk into Starbucks, you order a cup of coffee. Well, that's what people do when they go buy homes. They just walk into an open house, decide they like the house, and then decide they want to go buy it. Rather than starting at step 1, which is figuring out your budget. How much money can you allocate every single month towards a housing payment? Now understand, owning a house is different than renting. Every single month when you pay your rent, you're essentially paying for not only the roof over your head, but you're paying for all the maintenance, everything that's associated with that property outside of utilities. Whereas home ownership is a lot different because not only are you paying the mortgage, which puts the roof over your head, you also have to pay property taxes. You have to pay homeowners insurance. You have to have money set aside for maintenance, for those things that could potentially break on that property, things that need to be repaired, things that you want to do as a homeowner in order to make that property yours. That all needs to be in your budget. Now, it doesn't have to be broken down into a monthly budget, but where most people get it wrong is they start the conversation with a lender and then they ask the lender, how much home can I afford? And the right answer from the lender is, I can't tell you how much home you can afford. I can only tell you how much home you qualify for. And this is where people hear it wrong. When the lender tells them how much home they can qualify for, in their head, they're saying that the lender just said, I can afford that. And that couldn't be further from the truth because the lender only knows how much money you're making. They don't essentially know how much money you're spending. They only see what shows up on your credit report. Things like your car payment, your credit cards, your student loans, any sort of installment debt. They don't see how much you spend on groceries or childcare or going to the movies or going out with your friends. They don't see any of that. And the real problem is most people don't have a budget that breaks all of this stuff down to truly know what they can afford to purchase. So once you decide that you want to become a homeowner, start working on your finances. Start looking at your checking, your savings account. How much money are you spending every single month on these different things? Create an Excel spreadsheet and figure out how much money that you can realistically allocate every single month towards a housing payment. And if you look at that and you think, well, that's not enough to get me the house I want, then you can start looking at the things that you wrote down and start thinking about the things that you can cut out that you're currently spending that will add to your bottom line and essentially allow you to purchase more home. And that's going to take me into the second piece of this puzzle, and that is the professional assistance. Not trying to do this on your own, not trying to go out and find the property, not trying to go out and find the lender, not trying to go out and do every little piece of it on your own. Buying a home is a difficult process. It's the most expensive thing that most people will ever do in their lives. So rather than try to approach this alone, go out and find an expert real estate agent in your market, an expert mortgage professional that can help guide you through this process. Someone that can take you, hold your hand, walk you through the steps of the pre-approval, walk you through the steps of what it is to buy a home so that you're not approaching this with a blindfold on. Hiring a bad real estate agent and or mortgage professional is like taking dating advice from your parents. You shouldn't do it. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you should run out and Google how to find a real estate agent, how to find a mortgage professional, because that is only going to set you up for failure down the road. Rather, find someone with experience in your market. Find someone that has the knowledge, the expertise, that's been doing this. They do transactions. They've been in a couple of different markets. At the moment, we're in a market that's kind of crazy. Affordability is low, prices are high, rates are high. In fact, most real estate agents have never sold homes in multiple markets. A lot of the agents that are here today weren't here during the great financial crisis. They weren't here through 2012 to 2020. A lot of them have come in the last couple of years. And if I'm being honest, the real estate market is moving back to what it was prior to the pandemic. And you want somebody that's been through a market like this, someone that can answer your questions, not necessarily talk you off the ledge, but help you understand the data out there in the market and why things might not be what you've been reading in the news. At the end of the day, someone that can provide a little bit of context while ultimately guiding you and holding your hand. And once you have your budget from step one and you found the right professionals to help you out, they're going to walk you through the pre-approval process. They're going to walk you through a home buyer questionnaire, and they're going to find out what it is that you want in a house. They're going to find out what you need in a house, what's important to you in the process. And at the same time, you're getting pre-approved to find out exactly how much you can afford. Now, once you have all of that, then you're going to be in a much better position to set yourself up for success. I started today's video by saying right now might not be the best time to buy a house, but I'm curious to know your thoughts. What do you think about buying a house right now in today's market? Let me know in the comments below. Now, the reason I said earlier that it might not be the best time to buy a house right now is because prices are high. Affordability is low. Rates aren't really moving down very much, and it's just difficult out there. There's not a lot of property to choose from. It's a changing market. There's just a lot going on. And if I'm being honest, there's never really a perfect time to buy a house. If you were to buy it in early 2013, that was really the perfect time. But nobody truly knew it when it happened. A lot of times you don't know without hindsight, without looking back on those previous years. But here's what I'll say. Most people that I know that have owned homes any long period of time are really, really happy that they bought them when they did. And that's because you should never be buying a home trying to pick the top or the bottom in the market. You should be buying a home when it's the right time in your life. When you have some sort of foundation with your job, you're going to be in an area for an extended period of time. You have relationship stability. You have money in the bank outside of your down payment. All of these things are important in setting that foundation to become a homeowner. But the third thing I want to touch on and that you need to do is a little bit of research about where you want to be. Again, a lot of people buy homes and don't really know where they want to be. I can tell you this from selling real estate for over 20 years. I have a lot of conversations with a lot of different home buyers. And I often ask them, well, where do you want to be ideally? And they name off like 10 cities. And I go, no, ideally, where do you want to be? Well, we don't really care. We just want a home at this price. And I say, that's the absolute wrong way to approach it. I don't really say that, but that's what I'm thinking in my head. You should rather figure out where is ideal for you to start with and then work backwards. If you can't get it where it's ideal, then you start adding other cities in. You don't want to start by just throwing a bunch of stuff at a map and going, well, I'll live in any of these places, because what I can guarantee you is you'll end up hating where you live. And I can say that speaking from experience. One of the first homes I bought was down in South Orange County, and there's nothing wrong with South Orange County, but it was not where I wanted to spend my life after living there for any period of time. I realized that all my friends, everything I did was up near Huntington Beach. So every day as I drove down the 5 in traffic, sitting there, I hated having to go home to that house because I ultimately hadn't thought through the process. So you need to do that research up front to start narrowing down the areas that you want to be, so that when you're having a conversation with your real estate agent, they have a better idea of how to guide you through that process. Now, I know when I ask this question what the answer is going to be, but this is where I want to reach out to you, those of you viewing the video right now. How many of you actually have a detailed budget? Do me a favor and let me know in the comments below. And if you don't have one, let me know why. Now, the fourth thing that you absolutely need when going through the home buying process, we touched on it earlier, kind of relates to the budget, is that you need some money outside of your down payment. You need money for closing costs. You need money in an emergency fund in case something happens to your job, you lose your job, you're in a position to continue making your housing payment without stress. A lot of people get in trouble because they go to their lender says this is how much you can qualify for, and then they buy a home at that amount and they put all of their money into the down payment and the closing costs, and they have no money left over. And then something happens to the property and they need to make repairs, or something happens with the insurance. The cost of insurance goes up because now they're deemed a wildfire area and it's a higher cost to insure. So all of these things need to be factored in. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to happen, and God forbid they don't happen, but you want to have some money set aside in case something does happen, that you're not completely stressing out. Because if you think emotions are high while buying a house, take emotions once you own a house and start getting different expenses and things happening during the process. So the better prepared you are, the more comfortable you're going to be down the road. None of us like spending money on things that we don't absolutely have to have. And even then, we don't like spending money. But it's even worse having to spend money when you don't have it. So the more prepared you are, the better off you're going to be in the long run. Now, the fifth thing I want you to have prepared and ready to buy a house is the documentation. Your pay stubs, your W-2s, your bank statements, a copy of your driver's licenses, all the documentation ready. Now, you don't need to give that to a lender today, but you need to start gathering that documentation so that when you're ready to have that conversation with a lender, you have all the necessary paperwork there. You're not having to scramble for it, because what happens is a lot of people go into the process, emotions are high, they submit their stuff to a lender, partial stuff to a lender, and then they're waiting for pre-approval and they're not hearing back. And their lender's saying, hey, we need this document and this document and we need this. And the reality is, if you just had all of the stuff up front, you could probably get pre-approved within a day, maybe even a couple of hours, depending on your scenario. So you just want to make sure not only that you have your financial life in order, that you have the documentation to provide to the lender when you're ready to go through that pre-approval process. Now, if you're located here in the United States, my team can actually guide you through this process on both the mortgage and the real estate side. So if you need assistance, do me a favor and use that link in the description of this video. And if you found any value in this video, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up. Now that we've talked about the 5 things that you need when buying a house, let's talk about the 5 things you need to avoid. And you can find that here.